Mentored Writers is delighted to welcome a lad from the Rhondda Valley, who is not only a prolific writer, but who spends a great deal of his time, lockdown restrictions permitting, visiting schools. I am therefore delighted to be in conversation with Mr. Colin R Parsons. Colin, it's great to have you here in conversation with me today. Welcome.
Thank you very much. It's really, really nice to be invited to Ann Brady in conversation, because I love doing these interviews and you've done quite a few. So I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you. Now, I have been reading quite a bit about you, and despite being a prolific writer, as I mentioned, you actually didn't particularly like school. In fact, well, you certainly weren't very good at maths and science. I loved maths. I really did. So tell me, where did the desire to write come from?
Well, as far as school was concerned, like I said, I wasn't really a fan of school, but I've always liked stories in the form of maybe films. I've always liked listening to stories. And so the writing part came later on, actually, but I've always loved the idea of the stories then. And I always used to write little notes and little things myself. So like I said, in school, I liked art in school. I wasn't very good at it, but I liked art. I wasn't brilliant, like I said, at maths. But I'm partially colorblind as well, which didn't help with the art thing. So I used to write little stories in the house, and I didn't want to be too nerdy, because in those days, if you wrote stuff and all that, it was a different world back then. You're supposed to be big and hard and play rugby and football and that kind of thing. And I hated sport, if I'm honest. So
oh, that's a confession for a Welshman, isn't it?
I know. So yeah, the writing part kind of came in, putting little things down in notes, and I even remember writing something called Pen Pals, which was two pieces of folded paper, which I just done a short story on. That was the beginnings, I think.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Now, these days, people think that audiobooks are the latest bee's knees, so to speak. But in fact, you were listening to audio stories many years ago. What did it feel like the first time you heard your favourite story spoken out loud?
It was fantastic, to be honest. I used to go to Tonopandi Library, and I'm still a member of Tonopandi Library in the Rhondda. Audiobooks, I always tell this to when I'm doing events with children and all that kind of thing. If you lie in a room with a set of headphones on and shut the curtains, or if it's in the night, it doesn't matter, but have the room pitch dark. So it builds up an ambience, an atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then you are at one with this narrator. I mean, if the narrator is really good and portrays the story the way it should be portrayed, by putting all the description and the dialogue and everything in and acting the part out, it's as if you're in the story itself. You feel like you're walking through it. And I'm a big fan of H.G. Wells and Arthur Conan Doyle, and time travel and that kind of thing. So The Time Machine, The Lost World, War of the Worlds, it kind of opened up in my mind. I could see it all playing out. It was like watching a cinema blockbuster movie, but there was nothing there, just my imagination.
Yeah.
And that's what I loved. I mean, they were audio cassettes. It's all downloadable and stuff now, but you had these cassettes which you put into a little tape recorder.
Mine used to be tapes on a.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I didn't have headphones as such. I had one earpiece which plugged in, but it didn't matter. You would act one with the story, and that's what introduced me into reading in the first place, was audiobooks. Whereas now it's kind of a new trend now, and it's been going for donkey's years, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's the thing. It has been going. So I know that your writing covers an eclectic variety of genres and styles, from children's fiction to sci-fi to fantasy to steampunk, which is quite unusual, and to the supernatural. So are you a believer of the supernatural, or do these stories simply come from your imagination? I have a reason for asking this question.
Well, in your original question, I believe the one you sent me, you actually said that it's unusual for an author to have all the different genres.
Yes.
Which I find that a bit, I don't know, confusing, because to me, my stories kind of melt into all these different genres anyway. But the supernatural frightens me, if I'm honest, because I don't write horror. But because it frightens me, because I won't go to sleep. But I do like to know what happens after you've died. So I can remember when my father was alive years ago. He's been gone now about 26 years, and I said to him, well, "What happens when you die?" And he said, "When you die, it just goes to nothingness." I said, "Dad, there's got to be something after that. You've got to go somewhere." I don't know if it's big pearly gates and that kind of thing. So the supernatural kind of always intrigued me. Yeah. And time travel, I'm fascinated by time. I mean, we've literally just lost an hour. Where's it gone? Do you know what I mean? Where we move the clocks forward, and parallel universes. I don't know about anybody else, but you know, an old radio with a dial to change channels? I think if life just turned just half a millimeter, you're into another facet of another world.
It reminds me of that film Sliding Doors. I don't know if you've ever seen
Sliding Doors, I haven't watched for years, but I have watched 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Stepping onto a tube.
Yes, and if it had been that second or two later, yeah, the action wouldn't have happened, the sadness wouldn't have happened. But yeah, I mean, I love that film. But the supernatural, I mean, you asked the question, what happens after death? Yeah. And I was asking this when I was 15. My grandmother was in part of the spiritualist church. Oh, right. And so I got very curious about it. So when I went through my divorce from my first husband, it was something I thought, you know, I needed something. And of course, religion is something you look to. A lot of people do. And I thought, no, it doesn't do anything for me. So I went to the spiritualist church. My then husband complained to my father that I was going to the spiritualist church. And he just turned around and said, well, a grandma believed, so I'm not surprised. But from that moment on, I actually started believing in reincarnation. And I've always have done. Yeah. And I met a Taiwanese gentleman some years ago, and we were chatting. There was a group of us chatting, and one of the guests asked him, was he, you know, what religion he was. Yeah. And he said, oh, I believe in reincarnation. And I said, so do I. Put it there. And he looked at me and he says, you do? I said, oh, yeah, since I was 15. He went, great. You know, he was over the moon. But it is an important question that everybody asks.
Well, I've got a little story, if you don't mind me.
No, yes.
In primary school, I mean, this is way late 60s, early 70s, which would never happen now. I won't name who she is. She's still a friend of mine from school. There was a girl in my class, and she was the very first one who had one of these portable record players, which you could put, she'd carry that on. I thought that was amazing. But she brought in one day a Ouija board.
Oh, yes.
And things started to happen with the glass on top. And I had to step out there because it did frighten me. So I know there's stuff that goes on besides our world. And I do write a lot about the dark side of things, but I don't want to travel there myself. So, yeah, I do. That's why I put a little bit of supernatural in my stories, a little bit of fantasy and science fiction, and the steampunk element as well.
Now, apart from your writing, I noticed you do quite a lot of school visits. Well, you have been doing up until this last year. Yeah. And I know how enjoyable these types of events can be. And of course, how much fun one can have when working with young people, because I work with young people. Yeah. Now, obviously, with the visits being curtailed because of lockdown, can can you just go back and think, what is it that you found most enjoyable or satisfying when doing these visits? I know a lot of new authors and current and developed authors are thinking about, well, when school's open, I want to offer my services, or I'd like to do school visits. What's the pleasure and the satisfaction of doing that?
Well, I've literally, in April now, it'll be 8 years since I've done it, self-employed. And on average, when I started, I was doing 50 schools a year.
Wow.
And yeah, and the last school I did was World Book Day 2020. So I've literally gone a year now without doing schools at all. And I do presentations in the hall. And I'm proud of myself for that fact, because a hall could hold 100 children, or it could hold many hundreds. And the biggest audience I've ever held, I think, is 750, which is a vast audience. But I do a lot of classes of workshops. And what I enjoy about it mostly is I've got to give them the background. The children give me the characters' names, which I kind of pull out of them with throwing a ball, and they catch it, and we get names for characters that way, because teachers are always telling me it takes 20 minutes in class for a child to come up with a character's name, whereas the way I do it, it takes about 2 minutes. Yeah. So, but the one thing that really excites me about the workshop is I've given them all the ideas, they're all scribbling away there, and then you get the one, there's always one or two in the class that stop, and they're there, they got a piece of paper, and they're there, and they're going, and you can almost see the cogs moving inside the mind. At that split second when you go, there's a spark in the eyes.
Yes.
The eyes flicker open. Yeah. And you can see that something is channeled into them, and that set them off on the motion of going through the plot. Now, the other way around that I enjoy as well is when you've got a child who doesn't know where to go. And so what I do, which I would say is my magic, because a lot of teachers have said that I'm really good at what I do. I don't brag about it, but I've learned. You get a child who's lost and they don't know what to do with the story. And then I go around to them and I say, what about if you do this way and that way? Where are you two in the story? Oh, I'm going down a corridor. Okay then, and I don't know, there's a door at the end of the corridor, and I don't know where to go. Well, I said, turn around. Come back, open the trap door and go down underground. But where are we going? There could be tunnels, there could be dragons down there, there could be zombies, there could be tunnels that lead out to magical places. And all of a sudden, you go, oh yeah, I can do that, and I can do that. And that's what makes it for me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's the joy. That's the joy. Now, I know you're active on social media, and I know you have YouTube video. You have one for young writers aged 8 to 11 titled How to Build a Short Story.
Easy ways to start a story.
Would you like to tell us about that and what youngsters can achieve by watching, joining in with this video, and about any other videos? Are you planning to do any others, and have you done any others?
Well, I actually had to, my nephews came up to me one day, a couple of my nephews, and they said, you've got to do a YouTube channel because everything's on YouTube now. Well, I mean, it's Instagram, it's Twitter, there's a million platforms out there. But YouTube, I thought, okay, no, I'm not, I can put things together. I'm not totally professional and stuff. So I thought, if the schools that I go to is only covering a small percentage of the children throughout the UK. So I thought, if I put videos together, not huge videos, because children, their attention span gets lost after a couple of minutes. So I thought, if I put videos together of what I do in the classroom, but condense it down into, I don't know, a 2-3 minute video or something like that. And that's what I did. I condensed my workshops down to do with description and dialogue and 5 senses, and I started to get a lot of feedback off it. And now, to get views on YouTube is impossible. You put something out there and you could get about 10-15 views. Well, I know easy ways to start a story. I've got over 1,000 views, which is in the grand scheme of things, if you're Justin Bieber and you've got 10 million followers, yeah, but but there's a lot of people looking at the videos. So
Yeah.
my channel started to grow. So I thought, okay, I'm doing educational stuff, but I'm not really into poetry and rhyme, but I found myself making poetry videos, short ones, comical ones, only 2 minutes a time or whatever. And I was doing, I don't know, I could rig one up in about an hour, doing the backgrounds and memorizing it, so I didn't have to edit and things. So it started to grow, and I was putting more and more stuff on there.
Yeah.
And I've got 120, 130 videos on there now.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah, and you don't realize when you're putting them together, but yeah, I've got stories on there, because I put Christmas stories on there, episodes for people to check out, informational videos. I've got a lot of stuff on there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Adults as well as children.
Yeah, you do what I do with adults, and I do with youngsters as well, but I do this through podcasts and workshops and various other things. So yeah, it's brilliant. It is the way to go. It's YouTube is definitely the way to go. And of course, I don't know, I will give you a tip. Are you a member of no, is it ALCS? ALCS? I'll send you some details, because it will, that's it, ALCS. Have you registered your YouTubes with them?
No, I haven't actually.
Well, you can do now. You can register your websites and your social media, your YouTubes, your videos.
Author Lending and Collecting Service or something it's called, isn't it? ALCS.
ALCS. It's to do with, yes. I just got paid out this last month. So.
Me
You
too.
Okay. There's just as an aside, if anybody's listening and watching this and you aren't a member of ALCS, you should be, because believe you me, it's worth it. So that's a little promotion for them. Now, one of the things I know you and your lovely wife enjoy is visiting Lahan. Is that how you say it? Lahan in West Wales, which is the home of the late Dylan Thomas.
Yeah.
Now, I must admit that the first time I went there, I was fascinated by the place, because of course I live in Cardiff Bay, so it's not that far, and I found it totally inspiring. So what draws you to go back again and again, especially as I understand you prefer prose over poetry?
Well, first of all, you live in a beautiful part of Cardiff anyway, which Cardiff Bay is stunning. I mean, that's changed over the years, because way back in the 80s and 90s, I used to do deliveries around there, and that wasn't how Cardiff Bay looked back then.
No, my husband says that.
There was the docks, but Lahan, I tripped over Lahan, to be honest, once. My wife and I were always looking for places to go for a day trip or something, pack some sandwiches and go off. And we were heading towards Pendine. But you've got to go past or through Lahan to get to Pendine. Right. And as we were driving through, we saw they got a car park there, and there was a classic car show going on.
Oh.
So it was a Sunday afternoon, beautiful sunny weather, so we pulled in there. And then I realised then, as we walked around the castle there, of course, Dylan Thomas, which I should have known about in the past.
Oh, you should.
but like I said, I wasn't into poetry. Yeah. And what I found, because they've got like picnic benches and stuff just on the green by the side of the castle, I found, and this is an anecdote I used when I was doing schools a few years ago. I was sitting there, and an idea popped into my head for a short story, which involved kind of Dylan Thomas in a way, because I think I've got it in a ring binder somewhere called, what's he called? It's called Incident at Dylan's Bay. And that's all it was the animals in Dylan's Bay, which was Lahan. They started attacking humans, birds, dogs, cats, everything. I don't know why it came to me. I wasn't kind of, I was just starting out at a later time on my writing then, and I didn't have a pad and a pen. I've got a shoulder bag, and I've got satchels and things with
definitely
carry a pad and a pen. That's all I had. I said to my wife, what have you got in your bag? That's all she had was a pen and a Tesco's receipt. The back of the Tesco's receipt was blank back then. So she said, what do you want? I said, I want to write a story. I said, something's coming through. So I said, haven't you got anything else? She said, no. I said, it's about that long. So I said, how am I supposed to get it on there? She said, write really small. So
clever woman, your wife.
I wrote the first draft out, and that was a short story. Yeah. And yeah. I know, like, Dylan Thomas is known for Undermilk Wood and all the different poetry and stuff he's done. But that place grabbed us, and it's not far. It's only about an hour and a half, and you've got different vantage points of seeing, like, it's not the sea, it's like an estuary kind of thing, isn't it?
Yes.
You overlook it, and there's beautiful walks. You know, you've got the countryside, and you've got kind of the
sort of like the sea.
It's got a bit of everything.
It is. It's a beautiful place.
And you've got long, twisty stone steps going up to the shed, which obviously is not his original shed. No. Apparently, his original shed rotted because it was wood, and they chucked it on a dump. Somebody saw the front of it with the door, and now it's in the Dylan Thomas Centre in Swansea. Is the actual front.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
You've got the shed there with this little table and scrunched up bits of paper, and it just stamped itself on my soul, if I'm honest.
Yes.
I feel part of it. So every chance we get, which this week now when the weather kind of lifts up a bit, we are going to Larne for a few hours, sandwiches, whatever. But yeah, it made me write a story rather than poetry.
Yes, definitely. So another interesting thing I discovered about you, Colin, is that you're a member of the Dragon's Tongue Society, which I understand is a speakers club. And I hope it's not a swearing one, you know, sending out streams of fire. So I am correct, aren't I?
Well,
I'm just making sure.
I've never done a speaking platform with them. I mean, they've revamped it now on Facebook in the last month or so, Francis Thomas, but I was a member of Dragon Tongue about 12, 15 years ago.
Right.
Which they've got a website and all that kind of thing, but it's not a speakers club as such. It's for authors to exchange ideas, to bounce ideas and things off each other, to have a moan or a gripe about something. About maybe a new celebrity author that's just popped up or something. And
I have to keep my mouth shut because there's a certain person that I think writes things that shouldn't really be published, but that's me. And I'm not going to give any names away. I think enough people know who it is from me. Yeah. That's it. But there we go.
Well, an actor,
he's Welsh. He is Welsh, by the way.
An actor has just actually signed a big deal with HarperCollins, and he's having.
This is one of the problems I've had when somebody asked me about, you know, should I go down the traditional publishing route? And I write about this and I record podcasts about it, and I say it would be wonderful if you could, but these days it appears to me that publishers are more inclined to go for the what's the terminology? The sure thing.
Yeah. Well, 1 year, a couple of years ago, they normally have the World Book Day or World Book Week catalogue of the top 10 books. And there wasn't one author in there. They were all celebrities.
Yeah.
So there was an uproar. Even the top-notch authors weren't in there. So I don't agree with half the stuff that goes on, but it's for the publishers to make money these days. Yeah, like I said, a big film star, I've just signed a massive contract for like 10 books, and he's giving the ideas and he admits somebody else is writing it for him.
Yeah, ghostwriter. Ghostwriter.
So
yeah.
It's not fair, but that's how it is. You just got to plow on and hope your books will sell.
Yeah. That's brilliant, Colin. Now, although we're both writers, and we'd never met until a couple of years ago when you advertised the Rhondda Book Fair.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, as we know, all events have had to be put on hold for the last couple of years. Tell me, why did you actually set the fair up in the first place? And do you think you will be reviving the event? And if so, can I look forward to an invitation?
No.
Oh, dear, no.
Well, I've always wanted to do an event, originally a fantasy event, where because basically there's not a lot goes on in the Rhondda. We bookie events. Do you know what I mean? That they I don't know. You may have the odd like fair in the street. I don't know what you call them, festival and stuff. But there's never like an author book event that ever goes on. So a few years ago, because I've been trying to do it for years. I think about 6 years ago, maybe. I met up with somebody who started a bookshop in Pontyclean.
Yes.
And he got this bookshop going, and I said I've always wanted to do an event, and he said, well, why don't we do one in the Rhondda then? So we did one between us. The first one, there was a lot of technical difficulties, and it wasn't advertised well or anything. So after we did the first one, he said he didn't want to do it anymore. Well, I said, well, I'll carry it on. So I renamed it. It was like the Rhondda Lit Fest or something we called it, but I renamed it the Rhondda Book Fair. The bike club in Pennygraig in the Rhondda, the Soar Chapel, beautiful building, as you know.
Yes, it is.
They said, I said, can I carry it on? And they said, yes. My wife said, okay, the two of us can do this together, which was brilliant. She said, I can do all the cakes and the coffee and stuff. I then had to organize the tables and get some funding and get some money to run the event and the advertising and stuff. So I went to town, and actually we planned it out. I got in contact with a load of authors, and the event took place. The first time that I did it, which was the second year for it with my wife, it was belting down rain, heavy winds, but the place was packed because they came in and nobody left because it was too rainy. So they had coffee and cake and stuff. And with the little side room where we could do like live events, because we didn't do a live event first, we just did a sit down and a talk between an author, and I did the first host. The following year then, I got my good friend, Matt Lees, he's a Welsh Canadian. I don't know if you met him in the Rhondda Book Fair.
Yes,
he's
I did.
amazing. He's done Comic Cons, radio stations, and I said, would you host it? And he said yes. So we started. I started to get then people like Tim Leben, who did The Silence, the Netflix movie, and he's done Aliens and Star Wars books and that kind of thing. I've also had Jasper Ford, which was and it went really, really well. I mean, 2020, I had Thomas Taylor lined up. Now, do you know Thomas Taylor?
I've heard of him.
His claim to fame, he's an artist illustrator.
Yes.
He's got books out now in his own right, and they're Waterstone's bestsellers, and they've sold globally. He was commissioned to do a cover for a debut author. So he did the cover, and he was scared to death because, number one, if he'd made a mistake on the cover, he said, if it didn't get anywhere, nobody'd notice. But if it became a big seller, then he said any mistakes would have come back on him, and it would have haunted him. The author at the time, I don't know if you've heard of her, was J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I might just have heard of that.
So he actually did the cover for Harry Potter and Philosopher's Stone.
Wow.
So that was his start off. He's done Malamander, and I can't think of the second one. It's all about this bay and with underwater creatures and all that, and it's really taken off big time. So he was going to come in because he lived in West Wales for a few years, because he's from up north, I think, somewhere. And I got in contact with him. He was going to come. He's looking forward to doing the event. Of course, everything stopped. So I couldn't run the event in 2020. I really speaking, I can't run the event in 2021 because there's too much organizing beforehand. And I still don't know if venues will be allowed to be open. We don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of months, no mind the next 8 or 9 months. So unless I do like a Zoom thing, which I don't know if I'll do that yet, but I'm hoping to get it going again at some point because I enjoy doing it. It is nerve-wracking because I mean, I do 1 million YouTube videos to promote it. And then I do the videos and I advertise them on all the platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. I put it everywhere. and I'm continuously pumping it, and we buy banners, and we actually fix them up at the side of the roads. So people don't realize how difficult that is.
No.
It takes up a big...
Yeah, it's true, because I've organised events in my business, my past business life, and any event that you organise takes up a lot of time and effort, and then it's there, it's done, it's over and done with, and you think all that effort for like an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever, and but it's worth it. In the end, it's worth it. I enjoyed it. That's why I would love to come back again. So there we go.
I've had people coming on to me, authors coming on to me, say how professional it looks.
It's well done. It is well done.
My son does all the design because he's a graphic designer.
Yes.
So
yeah. Well done. Well done. So we'll keep this space free just in case.
Yeah, hopefully we will get it going, because people seem to enjoy it.
Yes. Yeah, that's the thing. So what I want to talk about now is your books. I want you to tell me about your latest published works, what it's called, what it's all about, and I understand you're going to tell us about it being launched shortly. So go for it, Colin.
Well, my latest book, I haven't even got a copy of it. It's due out, so I'm waiting for copies to come in, because I think I'm going to actually meet up with my publisher this week to sign copies, because we're doing a live event on the 7th of April, which is going to be Facebook Live. And I'm going to be interviewed by Matt Lees, my good friend, and people can send questions in, and they can order books through the publisher or buy them from Amazon. And it's a collection of short stories. I haven't really done a professionally published collection of short stories before. I've always done straightforward novels or novellas. It's got a strange title. It's got a long title, The Man with a Black Shoebox and Other Strange Stories. Oh. And it's with a brand new publisher as well, a Welsh publisher, blackbeebooks.wales. Now I've got a sister publishing house called Thunderpoint Publishing, which is Scottish, but they have set up a Welsh publishing house as well. There are only 3 authors with them so far.
Oh.
It's Gail Williams, who writes crime fiction and steampunk. Alexander Johnson, who writes, I think it's non-fiction kind of romance stuff. And I am the first young adult author with them. So it's an honor to do it. They're linked to the Welsh Books Council as well. So the books will be hopefully available in bookshops throughout Wales. And it's got, let me grab a list. I've got what have I got? I've got 9 stories. The Man with the Black Shoebox is the first one. And I've based a lot of the stories in Wales, because it's got a Welsh link with the publisher, and I'm Welsh. So The Man with the Black Shoebox is based in Pontypridd. And it's about this guy. He's like, what would you call him these days? Somebody who's homeless. He's an old guy. He's got a big coat on, big bushy beard, and he's carrying, everything about him is disheveled. And he's carrying this shiny black shoebox under his arm, which doesn't fit with his appearance. And this boy is fascinated by it. I haven't even got the name of the boy because it's done in the first person. There's 2 stories in this collection which are in the first person. Everything else I normally do in the third person. And he follows this guy. This guy leaves this box on the bench, and I'm not going to say any more than that.
No, don't.
It Came with the Storm is another story in there, which I've used my friend Matt Lees as the main character, who's coming home on his bike in the middle of the night, his motorbike in West Wales, and there's a thunderstorm, and he's got to take shelter because all the roads are washed out, which they do. And he finds a derelict garage, but something has followed him. I've written something as well called Tram, which is all about, I based this on my son actually. My oldest boy's called Chris, and he's coming home on the tram every night in Cardiff, but this tram pulls up and it's not his usual tram, and it doesn't take him home. And there's a lot of stuff that takes on there. But like I said, there's another like 5 or 6 stories there. They're all quirky, they're all oddball. My previous book to that is The Gamer.
The Gamer.
The Gamer, yeah. It's that's with another publisher called Crystal Peak Publishing. It's all about Drake Banks, who he's gone around the world with his father and mother, because his father's a captain in the army. So he's gone from army base to army base, and his father has died. So they've got to come off the army base, and they're going back to his mother's parents' town, and they've got to live with his grandparents, I think. And he doesn't get on in school. He gets bullied. He doesn't fit in there. And the only thing he's got to keep him happy and to keep him focused is a video game. Now in the town, they've got this brand new shopping precinct they've got arcades there, cinemas, bowling alleys, cafes and all that. And that's where all the school kids go. But there's an old gaming arcade at the older end of town. And only like a couple of middle-aged gamers go there. And he goes there and he finds a console called Death Trap. And he can play it for hours because you put 10 or 20 pence in there and you can keep the platforms going. But the game sucks him in. And it's kind of, I like Tron and Tron Legacy, where they immersed in the video game. And so he's got to compete against Crystal Moon and Scott Vent, 2 programs which should beat him easily in this game. If he doesn't beat them, he's locked in that game forever. So there's a lot of stuff. There's electronic spiders, there's rockets.
Hang on, you're giving too much away here.
but that's just this kind of a small part. I mean, behind me, I've got a lot of books which I've written. Wizard's Kingdom, which was a trilogy that I started off with. Yeah. The first book called Wizard's Kingdom, I was asked to launch it at Borders Bookstore in Llantrisant. When the American store came to the UK, I was working in a warehouse at the time. I'd written this little purple book. Have I got it with me? Oh, hold on. That's all I had.
Wow.
And that was self-published. And I went to Borders. They had all the American suits there and all the balloons because they were launching this new bookstore. And I had 2 schools which I did talks with, and I actually signed 100 books that weekend.
Wow.
It was like going from somebody unknown to somebody up in like Terry Pratchett's level. And
brilliant.
That's what kind of set me off on. Yeah. So I just write fantasy and science fiction since then.
That is brilliant. That is brilliant. Now I shall be adding the details of links to Colin's books, social media and his YouTube channel on the Mentoring Writers website. I'll also be including it in the next newsletter. So remember, people, check it out in due course. So yeah, got to do that. Now, recently, I did a podcast titled Coping with Writer's Block, which is that lovely gremlin that all writers suffer with. And I noted that you were honest enough on social media, not so long since, to post how you'd hit a dry spell and were suffering with that very gremlin. Can you share with our listeners, as a writer and as a long-time writer, how you felt during that time? What, if anything, you did to overcome it, and what you felt, obviously, once you were back on track?
Well, thinking about the career, I've been doing this now about 24, 25 years, maybe, quarter of a century, which is crazy.
I can beat you. I can beat you by 10 years, you know.
Okay. Well, it was really peculiar, if I'm honest, because when we did the first lockdown, it was the other way around. It was like polar opposites. I wrote 3 books in a row because I'm actually writing adult crime fiction as well as children's now. I've got a series which I've signed 3 contracts for, Killian Spooks Mysteries. And I wrote one after the other because I had plenty of time to do it. And I was still reading at the time as well. But all of a sudden, everything stopped. I stopped reading. I stopped writing. We couldn't go anywhere. I don't know if my creative flow was quashed because I couldn't get out there to experience things. And I found out a lot of authors were suffering from the same thing.
Yeah.
There was one travel writer. He was commissioned to go abroad and do things with the forests and with the woods. the Woodlands, and that's all he could do was work from his bedroom, and he had a window, and he had his little stamp of a green garden below him. So he was stuck. So I thought, well, it's not just me.
Oh no.
So I thought I'll put it up on social media, because I got a lot of people who like following my stuff. And I thought I'd let them know that I've slowed down with things, and ideas are not flying to me like they used to. And I think it was the support of everybody saying, look, don't worry, because I'm normally giving advice to children and adults about writer's block, or, you know, I wouldn't even call it writer's block, because my creative writing teacher said there's no such thing. He said, if you get stuck somewhere, just go in a different direction. And I can see that, but he wasn't in the middle of a pandemic. And when you've virtually been grounded like a teenager, and you couldn't go anywhere. So I travel all over the country, and if I'm not traveling to schools, I'm driving around the place to explore, and things pop up in my mind. And when I see things, and that wasn't happening. So I went through a bit of a dark patch. A lot of people did, because a lot of people are going to have mental health issues since this lockdown, because they can't do the things they normally do. But it was the support of people saying, don't worry about it, let it come, it'll actually start to work. And straight after that, it might sound ridiculous, but straight after that, ideas started forming again. And then, and I didn't know what direction, I never know what direction I'm going in. So sometimes I grab a pen and write things down, and sometimes I'll jump onto my laptop, and a story started to unfold. Now, I love airships. I love Zeppelins and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And there's an author that I love who did a trilogy, which I've read 5 times, called Airborne, and he's a Canadian writer. And I just love the Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of adventure.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write something like that, and these ideas start to pop through as well, which I thought was amazing. And I've dug straight into that. Funnily enough, earlier this morning, we had to do a bit of shopping. So I pulled up in the car park, because we go in singly now. My wife goes in, or I'll go in. And I grabbed my pad, and I was writing the next chapter in this story that I'm doing. So it's great for that feeling of the words to flow through like warm water then. And I'm back in the groove.
Good. That's all we want. But that, you're right about the support. This is what I tell new and developing writers, that the world of writing is the people in it, in the majority, not 100%, because there are some people who won't give the time, but in the main, most people are very supportive. And if you have a question, they'll try and answer it, they'll try and help you. And if you are feeling this downward spiral where you think you've lost the buzz, you've lost the flow, you're not sure what you're going to do, people will support you. And that is a brilliant thing. And that's what I love. So you're back in the groove, and that's
my biggest fear as a writer since the beginning is no more ideas coming to you, and there's no more directions to go. And I've always had plenty of ideas flashing up, and now they're coming back again. But that is my biggest fear.
Yes.
It's like a film star who's a multi-millionaire, but they think perhaps tomorrow they lose it all and they'll be back to where they started.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like that. I'm not a millionaire.
We'd all like to be, I'm sure. Now, before I finish our interview, I want to ask a couple of questions, but these are a bit more personal.
That's okay.
So first, I want to go back to when you were a little boy. I'm sure you can remember it, and ask you, what is it you wanted to do when you grew up?
Well, I was told to be either a plumber or an electrician, because that's where the money was. And when I was a kid, I'm a big fan in the 60s. I mean, I was born 1960, so when I was about 5 or 6 or 7, Man from U.N.C.L.E. was on.
Oh, yes.
Robert Vaughan and
David McCullum.
Yeah. Ilya Kuryakin, isn't he?
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I had, like I said, with the audio tapes, I had a tape recorder, right? And I can remember that in my bedroom, after watching episodes of Man from U.N.C.L.E., I wanted to be a spy. Now, they had these big computers with all the flashing lights and the digital, the sound of the light, no, not digital, obviously, but so I had a tape recorder and I would record answers. So I put a gap in between it and I would ask the tape recorder questions as if it was a computer. And they could talk to their watches. And I had a watch, I've always had a watch, and I pretended that I could talk to my watch. Now you can actually, Apple Watches, it's all there. Something else I did, which I find ridiculous now, I found an old length of flex with a plug on the end. I wrapped it around my waist, and that was my grappling hook. And, and I could climb up buildings and stuff.
Oh, I love it. I absolutely love it.
I did Batman and Robin and that kind of thing, but I wanted to be a spy.
A spy.
So I could infiltrate the enemy, and I could wear a suit, and I could have all these gadgets. Yeah. So I didn't want to be a mathematician, or I didn't want to be anything else other than James Bond, basically, isn't it?
Believe it or not, I rewatched the piece from the games where the Queen and Daniel Craig did the bit from the palace and dropped out of the helicopter, and people say, oh, it was a double for the Queen, and everybody said, no, it wasn't. She didn't jump out of the helicopter, but it was definitely the Queen in the palace with Daniel Craig. That was the condition, that she could do that bit. And the dressmaker said she made 2 identical dresses. So the dress the Queen wore on the night of the games, they made an identical one for the person who jumped out of the helicopter. But I just thought, yeah, that's being a spy.
I can imagine the Queen as a spy. She'd have all her butlers and all that to do all the dirty work.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. So, now, many people might or might not be aware, but here in Cardiff Bay, this is where they filmed the Doctor Who series. And I know that you're a fan of the programme, as is my youngest granddaughter. She absolutely loves it. So is it true that you once walked through the middle of a film scene? Now, I don't know if that was Doctor Who, but you were ushered away by a security guard.
that actually wasn't Doctor Who. I am a big fan of Doctor Who. David Tennant, I think, is my favourite now, but John Pertwee in the 70s was... Yeah, I just thought he was amazing. He was the gentleman, wasn't he, with all the ruffled shirts? Definitely. But no, I didn't walk through the film set of Doctor Who. I actually walked through the film set of Stella.
I love that programme.
They were filming in Tonopandi because they filmed all over the Rhondda, and I couldn't see them filming, if I was honest, but I could see people were all kind of clustered, and I needed to go somewhere. So I walked through, and I thought, well, there's nobody around here. And as I walked through, I saw a couple of people at the cash point. No, I don't know. Looking at it now, they were actually extras. I didn't know that. I thought, because they were outside the bank. And I walked so far, and I stopped on the pavement, and I looked to my right, and on my right, standing there with a handbag, which was on the floor beside her, it was Ruth Jones. And I thought, oh. And I realised then I was right in the middle of the set. And then this guy came up in a black T-shirt and trousers, and he had a walkie-talkie on, and he had security on him, and he ushered me straight off. And I didn't end up in the cut. But that was, I was in the middle of that. And years ago, which has nothing to do with being a writer, really, I was working for a company which are long gone now, and I was in Cardiff, in Queen Street, and I think it was Burger King or Wimpy or some burger joint, and I'd taken a day off sick, and I wasn't sick, and I was inside. We were having a burger for lunch, and when I was biting into the burger, I realised that I was being filmed, and they were doing a documentary on burgers and the fats that go into them and stuff, and they played the trailer throughout the day. The week before the show day, and I was the very first person on the trailer.
Oh,
my boss came up to me and he said, "You're on the trailer?" Yeah, I said, "They filmed that on a Saturday," but it was actually the middle of the week. So that was the second time.
Oh, well done. Well done. And finally, can I ask, what does the future hold for Colin R Parsons, author, school visitor, and book fair organizer?
Well, I'm still writing books, but I'm writing, I do children's picture books now. I do children and teen, and I do adult crime fiction. My ultimate goal, which I will get there in the end, I want a movie made of one of my books. I don't know how, to get something on Netflix or Amazon Prime, a series or a film or something. But I'm writing.
Can I give you a suggestion?
Yeah.
I think they're still open. Look at the Page Turners Awards and look at the script writing. They've opened up a new section whereby if you have a book, but not a film script, but a book that could be a film script, you can actually put it forward for an award. You can put it in. It's a competition.
Well, if you send me the details, I'll definitely.
Yeah. Paul Michael Glazier. Now, you're a kid of the 60s, 70s. You've got to remember Starsky and Hutch.
Yeah.
He is the lead judge for the script writing award.
Excellent.
So I'm in good company because I'm also giving an award. I'm giving a mentors award. So I did it last year and I'm doing it again this year.
Brilliant.
So, but yes, I'll send you the details. And anybody else out there who's watching, listening, I think there's still time to enter. The Page Turners, it's for writers of all different sorts. And there is one of the awards is for script writing. There's agents, publishers, mentoring, audio.
Yeah,
there's all sorts of different awards. It's a brilliant competition that goes on. So I'll send you the details, Colin. In fact, the details are probably on my website, but if they're not, I will make sure that they are.
Well, like I said, at the moment, I've got Killian Spook's Mysteries Spirit Jumper, which will hopefully be out by the summer.
Yeah.
I've signed 2 other contracts, so the 2 other books will follow on bit by bit, maybe towards the end of the year or maybe in 2022. I'm actually writing The Lost Airship at the moment, and I've got 2 stories which are not quite finished, which could end up as books, maybe with other publishers. And yeah, I'm still writing and hoping that schools start back up, because I want to get back into schools and doing the presentations and workshops. I was going to work with social distancing and stuff. I don't know, but that's what I want to do and carry on as I am, actually.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Thank you, Colin. I've really enjoyed talking with you today, and I hope our listeners, viewers have discovered something interesting about you, as well as learning more about your writing and your books.
Brilliant. I've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for listening today. Writing is sometimes an easy journey filled with exciting elements and adventures, but occasionally we writers cross the border into frustration, despair, and that's when we meet that gremlin writer's block. But all is not lost, as we usually find our way through with a little help from our wonderful writing community. So if you need help with any aspect of your writing journey, then check out our website, mentoringwriters.co.uk, or email us contact@mentoringwriters.co.uk, and we will endeavour to assist you. Once again, I thank Colin R Parsons for being in conversation with me, Ann Brady, at Mentoring Writers.
Thank you very much.